happy to answer questions from my colleagues. And thank you again for having me to this committee. Merci.
Okay, merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you, Minister. We'll begin questions.
Industry Committee, you will have the floor for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to be clear, Minister, the members of the Industry Committee do not have an unredacted copy of the contract. A redacted version of the contract was given to members at the OGO Committee after weeks of fighting to get a copy of it. But I am glad to hear that you are now familiar with the clauses in the contract, because we heard at OGO, in fact, that you hadn't read the entire contract when it was signed. What I do want to talk about is specifically right away is Section 6.3 of CIF Agreement 813-816-6251, which I hope you're familiar with. And to be also clear, I want to have your answers, not the answers of the people that you brought with you, because ultimately ministerial responsibility rests with you. In Section 6.3.1, create and maintain high-skilled jobs in Ontario, it says the recipient shall maintain an average of 4,475 FTEs in Canada for the work phase. The recipient shall maintain an annual average of 4,475 FTEs in Canada for the benefits phase. Are you aware of how many employees Stellantis employed when you signed this contract and you got this jobs guarantee?
Well, first of all, Mr. Chair, it's great that we have the same version. I'm working from the redacted version. And actually, I'm a lawyer, so it's going to be quite interesting to look at these things together. And you may want to seek legal counsel when you're referring to certain clause, because you'll have to understand the interaction between the clause that you mentioned, 631, and in fact 634D, which is obviously, you have to read these two clauses together. So we were aware of the number of employees that were there, but you have to read both agreements, because
I'm aware of that clause. No, but just a second, Minister. I'm aware of clause 631D.
Colleagues,
but there's
Mr.
an amendment
Seeback,
that
pausing the, Mr. Seeback, don't worry, pausing the clock. I know everyone's protective of their time. Colleagues, maybe I'll try to set the tone early. We've got the Minister here. We've got colleagues that have questions. Let's let each other get through questions and answers. I will play nice with the time, and hopefully we can have a good quality conversation, which will allow us to head into the holiday season on good terms with one another. Mr. Seeback, I've stopped the clock. There are 4 minutes and 10 seconds remaining. The floor is yours. Minister, if we can let him finish, and then Mr. Seeback, allow him an opportunity to respond. The floor is yours, starting the clock again.
Yeah, Minister, I'm aware of clause 6.31D, which talks about they will maintain production at the Brampton facility. But are you aware there was an amendment to the CIF agreement that says that clearly contemplates the closing of that facility? It's in amendment number 2, which my colleague has a copy of. So I don't need to be told that the Brampton facility couldn't close. My question to you was, how many full-time employees did Stellantis have when you signed this contract? Because you're only guaranteeing 4,475 FTEs.
Sir, do you know for how long is the duration of the contract?
Minister, I don't know if you know how.
I'm just trying to help you.
I don't know if you know how this works.
Because if you want to understand the clause, I'm a lawyer, so I can help you interpret the contract.
I was a lawyer as well. When I'm the minister, you can ask me questions. That's fine. No. I'm asking you, did you know how many full-time employees Stellantis had? You can either say, yes, I did, and tell me, or you can say, no, I don't. You don't ask me a question. That's not how it works,
The number was known, but I'm trying to help you. You should be grateful. I'm here to help you. So I'm trying to help you understand the contract. I appreciate you didn't sign it, you didn't negotiate it, you didn't even participate in the negotiation. I did.
I kept it hidden for 2 years.
Because I can help you and help Canadians understand.
Well, why don't you just help me right now and help Canadians by saying how many actual full-time employees Stellantis had when you signed the contract?
Well, what you need to look, the number you have there is an average over a period of 12 years. So what you have there is a floor. And I would say to you, you should refer to, if you seek legal advice, you would see that when you have these contracts with respect to the floor of employment, for the auto industry, they usually go for a decade. So what you have is that you have an average over a period of time. This is a floor. That's what I'm trying to help you understand. This is like a floor. And when you read that clause, bear with me just for 1 second. I appreciate you have a question. You need to read the other CIF agreement because they go together. There's a connection between the two SIF agreement, which is the Next Star, and the Stellantis.
I really don't need you condescendingly telling me to read things. What it says is the recipient shall maintain an average of 4,475 FTEs in Canada during the work phase. We're in the work phase because work is being done. And Stellantis had 8,000 employees when you signed this contract, 8,000. So that means they could fire 3,500 employees and still be in compliance with this agreement. And that there, sir, is the problem. Under this SIF agreement, the combined contributions were $3 billion. And they were still allowed, during the work phase, to fire up to 3,500 employees. And now they've fired 3,000 employees in Brampton. They did exactly what they were allowed to do. How can you say that this was a contract that was going to protect the workers? And my subsequent to that is, did you tell Unifor that this was part of the contract? Because I bet you didn't. They would not have been happy that you were allowed. They were allowed to fire 3,500.
You're making a lot of assumption for someone who was not at the table. I don't recall having seen you negotiating the contract with us. Maybe I'm getting old, but I could not remember seeing you at the table when we negotiated. But when you see that clause, like I said, you have to read it in connection with 634D. That's what I'm trying to explain to you, and this is a floor. That was the commitment by Stellantis. And you need to read it in conjunction with the other SIF agreement, which, if you want to go back, the Next Star agreement, because the Next Star agreement has also a floor. No, but let me answer.
And under Amendment Agreement number 1, it says, if the recipient closes the Brampton assembly plant prior to December 31st, 2035, and the closure cannot be shown to be about the result of a whole bunch of things. So your Section D doesn't matter because in an amendment you clearly contemplated that the plant could close. So don't lecture me, sir, on reading the contract. I've read it.
So, Mr. Seeback,
I think you're making a lot of assumptions for someone who has not seen the entirety, sir. You have the benefit of having someone who did it.
The only reason I haven't seen the entirety is because you've hidden it.
Sir, I'm trying to respond. If you want to pretend you were there and you know, just go on. What I'm trying to help you is to help you understand the contract and the interaction between the two clauses and the interaction with the other SIF agreement. Because if you look at the other SIF agreement, you have a protection for 2,500 jobs. If you put the two together, you have a protection for about 7,000 jobs, which is the floor that you have in these agreements.
And that SIF agreement was modified as well with an amendment that talked about the jobs.
Mr. Seeback and Minister, both of you, please. When I intervene as chair, your responsibility in that moment is to listen to what I have to say to allow me to get us to a productive and efficient, respectful, and effective space, both of you. So your time was up, Minister. I was trying to afford a couple of more seconds for you to answer that question. I think we've done that. I'm now going to go on to the next line of questioning.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to go back to the SIF agreement number 813-816-251 and back to the jobs guarantee. You said that this is the floor, the 4,475 full-time equivalents. And I asked you if you knew how many full-time equivalents Stellantis had at the time you signed the contract. You didn't answer, so I told you it's 8,000. So what this agreement allows as the floor is that Stellantis could maintain 55% of its workforce. That's what 4,475 is of 8,000. I was a lawyer, so I'm not great at math, so I used a calculator to do that. So I guess my question to you is this, and I think it's a very simple and straightforward question. And, Minister, I just hope you'll give a simple and straightforward answer to it. This agreement allowed Stellantis to reduce its workforce by 45%. And still be in compliance with the agreement because they had 8,000 FTEs at the time. Did you discuss this floor, as you described it, with Unifor, the auto workers in Unifor, before you agreed to this? Yes or no?
So it's a complex question, so I'll try to simplify it for folks who are watching at home. That's why I'm saying this is a floor, an average over 12 years. That's how you have to understand that. And I know you may not agree with me, but if you seek legal counsel, they would say that you cannot read this clause alone. You have to refer to the other clause, because I know you're going at the Brampton. I was there to defend the Brampton folks. I can even tell you how the discussion went step by step. But that's why we insisted in the same paragraph that you referred to in Section D, 634D, and let me read for folks at home, the recipient shall maintain production at the Brampton Assembly Plant during the term or until December 31st, 2035. So I'm just saying, when you read the
but no, Minister, I'm
trying to help.
So colleagues, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to press pause. I'm going to give him 10 seconds to finish, Mr. Seeback. I'm not taking that away from your time, okay? Just to let him finish. 10 seconds, Minister. Then I'm going to go to you, Mr. Seeback. Clock is stopped. And then we'll provide you the opportunity to follow up. Minister, just in 10 seconds to finish your thought.
I'll do that in 10 seconds. So you have this clause, and you have to read the other SIF agreement with Nexstar, because these two agreements go hand in hand. So you have to read this clause, the other section, plus the other SIF agreement together.
Okay. Start the clock again.
Minister, for goodness sakes, that wasn't my question, was it? I asked you if you talked about what you call the floor with Unifor before you signed this contract. Were they aware that the floor could result in 45% of their workforce being let go before you signed the contract? It's a simple question, please.
Yeah, but I don't agree with how you characterize it, because what I'm saying to you, it's an average over 12 years. That's why you have to look at this clause plus the other SIF agreement. If you want not to mislead Canadians, but Canadians at home are not
sit here and be accused of misleading Canadians, sir. You won't answer a simple question. That's misleading Canadians. Did you discuss this clause? Did you discuss this clause with Unifor before you signed the agreement? Yes or no?
Sir, what I'm saying to you, because you were not there. So that's the problem. You're asking a question, but you don't know what you're asking. What I'm telling you is that when we did this agreement, you have to read the Nexstar agreement and you have to read the clause together. Seek legal opinion.
My question.
No, but I'm telling you, seek legal opinion.
That's not my question. Did you discuss it with Unifor, yes or no?
We had discussion with a number of stakeholders when we were negotiating. That negotiation...
That's fine. You know what? I'll just take this clause and ask Lana Payne if you talked to her about it before you signed it.
I probably talk to Lana Payne more often than you, sir, with respect.
We'll see. I'm going to split my time with Mr. Guglielmin.
So just for the record here, before you take the floor, Mr. Guglielmin, I have a minute 35 remaining on the allocated time. Okay, sir? Thank you. I'll start it now.
Minister, CIFA Agreement Amendment Number 1, subsection 3, paragraph 4. You're clearly already talking about closure of the possible closure of the Brampton plant for Stellantis. Did you know that jobs would be at risk, or there were going to be layoffs or plant closures before you signed the contract?
Sir, when we negotiated that contract was to make sure we have protection for the employees, because, like, again, I'm trying to help your colleagues understand this was not negotiated alone. This was negotiated with the Nexstar agreement.
Respectfully, Minister, the question was if you knew there was already the intention to have layoffs at the plant, because you clearly considered it in an amendment.
There was no intention. There was no intention for, that's why I'm trying to explain to you, because when you've been part of negotiating these contracts, you have an average over a decade.
Minister, did you let Unifor know that their jobs were going to be at risk when you signed this contract?
What I can tell you, at every step of the way, we fought for the workers to have the strongest protection for their jobs, for the investment, and making sure that Stellantis would invest. And that's what I'm saying. When you look at the interaction between these two contracts, that's what you need to do.
Minister, I'll give you another quick one. Yes or no answer, please. We're committing billions to Stellantis. Were there preclusions for Stellantis to pay executive bonuses in the contract?
So I'd like, which billions are you referring to? Because like I told you, if you go to the public accounts of Canada, what has been disbursed under the special contribution agreement is
Minister,
$40 million.
you said $9 billion. So regardless of how much has already been dispersed, was there a preclusion in the contract for them not to hand that money over in executive bonuses, those public funds? Yes,
Sir, there's a
That's going
number
to be
of
the last
covenants.
question. I'm going to give you an opportunity to answer it, Mr.
Well, I'd say there's a number of covenants in the agreement that protect workers, that protect Canada, and I would refer you to the public accounts of Canada.
But I guess
Okay, Mr.
nothing to
Guglielmin,
protect.
I apologize that we're now 20 over.